that fascinating. And I mean, it's long, but maybe an hour into it. And we're streaming live on Facebook. Hello, live. Yes, if you want to hear Facebook and YouTube, if you want to hear a fascinating interview, find the Dick Thompson interview on the Jocko podcast. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
It's 204, 205, and 206.
I'll put it into the chat here on Zoom and put it into the Facebook side.
That'd be great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'd be great. Because is that a lesson right there.
You need to fasten your seatbelt when you start 205.
Okay.
The pace really picks up.
Okay. Great stuff. And we have Chule here. We're talking about the 46th anniversary of the fall of Saigon. And we're going to have Chu share some of his memories. Oh boy, what a story. What a story. Did your mother make it out of Vietnam?
No, Todd. My life story is too long, and the name that I have on me now is not me. I had to use paper of my cousin, and so I am my cousin because of my father. The fact that he was with the North, and he wasn't with the North at first. He was captured by the French, and then when they exchanged prisoner, the French just gave all the Vietnamese to Ho Chi Minh, and Ho Chi Minh promised my father 2 years in the North, and then he'll send every South Vietnamese back in the South. And it never happened. That started my trust with the communism from there.
Right.
And they did went back on the Geneva Agreement, right?
Right.
And they went back on every word that they promised, all the ceasefire during the years.
Right. No, they never abided by a ceasefire.
I mean, I'm very grateful that you let me voice my voice, but I just want to show my appreciation to the United States. I mean, it's a very generous, and I met a lot of sponsors, including mine, and they are all so. I cannot describe it. I mean, every time I talk about the American people and the sponsor who opened their arm and accept all of us, the refugees, I cannot believe it. I don't know if I can do it myself. If somebody come in my country and need a home,
right?
You know.
I'm going to start our program now. Everyone. Hey, welcome to our Veterans Breakfast Club event here for Wednesday, April 28th. And on Friday, it'll be the 46th anniversary of the fall of Saigon. And we have a special guest here, Chu Le, who many of you met on Monday night for our focus on ARVN veterans. We also have Dick Thompson here that we've been advertising heavily, and that is he's a veteran of MACV-SOG. Hello, Dick. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
And you are joining us from Athens, Georgia.
Yes.
And we have been talking about MACV-SOG, and in fact, last night I mispronounced it. I said that SOG was Special Operations Group, but it was actually Studies Observations Group, which is a
code name.
I was going to say, it sounds almost academic.
Yeah, it is. It was intended to be that way. So we were supposed to be some, bookworms, nerds that were there to just study how the war was going and what was going on. And so it was, everything at that time was top secret. So no one knew where we were. Even our families knew we were in Vietnam, but not exactly where. We had a phony mailbox that letters and things went to before they came to us, so they could all be screened. So make sure information wasn't getting out about where we were or what we were doing.
And in fact, the U.S. The government denied the existence of SOG, right up until the 1980s or 1990s, correct?
Yeah. And when you became a member of SOG, you had to sign a non-disclosure form that said, I won't disclose anything about where I was, what I did about SOG for 20 years under threat of, prosecution.
And when was that 20 years up?
88.
88.
Well, for me, it was 88.
And that's when you felt free to start talking about it?
That meant that I could. I
Okay.
still didn't talk much about it. I mean, I didn't go into a lot of the details until later on.
And I realize I haven't even introduced myself. I'm Todd. I'm the director of the Veterans Breakfast Club. Welcome again to our Veterans Breakfast Club Wednesday morning program. Sean is actually, I'm stepping all over Sean here. Sean's actually the one who's been talking with Dick and scheduled him for today. How you doing, Sean?
I'm doing great. How's everybody out there? It's good to see everyone.
Good to see you.
And we have Ellie also in Chicago wearing a colorful spring shirt. How are you doing, Ellie?
Doing well. It's a little rainy here today, so I thought I'd try and be a little more springy.
Okay, very good. And I asked Dick if it would be okay if we had Chu just say a few words first about his experiences 46 years ago, just because we're coming upon this anniversary of the fall of Saigon. It's such a meaningful date for so many of our Vietnam veterans. Most of our Vietnam veterans remember that day and remember what they felt. And I mean, Joe Boschia, I remember on Monday night, he said that he was at work and he had to tell his boss, you know what, I need to go home. This is going to be a hard day for me. So it was hard for Vietnam veterans who spent a year or more of their lives in Vietnam to hear that their efforts were for naught. And for Chu, he lost a lot more than what our Vietnam veterans lost. He lost his country. And that to me is almost unimaginable. And in fact, Chu and I were talking right before we came on here. Chu's story is so involved. It's so fascinating. It has so many twists and turns in it that I really encouraged him to write his memoirs. And he said he's working on it. And I want to help him work on it if we can, because I think it's such an important story. But today, I just thought we'd focus on what he remembers about 46 years ago today, April 28th, 1975, April 29th, 1975, then April 30th, 1975, when he was a young helicopter pilot and he was on, was it Con Tho or Con Son Island?
Can Tho.
Con Tho Island.
Con Son Island is where I flew to after the surrender.
Okay. And I'm going to share a picture of you and of where the island is located. What was going through your mind 46 years ago today, Chu?
Blank. I didn't think about anything. I just do whatever come up. I don't remember thinking at all. It was like a machine.
But you said that like on April 28th, you weren't preparing to evacuate or to flee Vietnam. You were preparing to fight. You were expecting to be called back into the fight right on the mainland.
That's right. Yeah. And my wing commander, the 29th night after we were shelled, he had us in the officer club. And he said, whoever thinking about leaving is coward. And you have to step over my body to do that. So being a 25-year-old guy, I mean, I was hot. I think this guy is so cool. But lo and behold, 3 o'clock that morning, he already escaped with a stolen aircraft from another pilot from Phuket or somebody. There was pilot from other places came to Can Tho a couple nights before to join us in the fight back. And when this guy said that, I believe him, because I said, man, that's what we should do. And 3 o'clock in the morning, they left all the big guy. You mean all the colonel left. I can count 4 or 5 of them in the Cessna. And they left the job to the executive to take care of, like the executive wing commander and
right,
and so on. And
so your wing commander gave this big speech about, hey, we're going to fight them to the very end.
yeah,
But then he snuck off and left, and he left to seek the U.S. 7th Fleet.
he know the way. He know the way, and they flew to Utapao. You know Utapao in Thailand.
Yes, Ben Wright was there. Yes, yes.
And I met him in the refugee camp in Fort Chaffee, Arkansas. He come and talked to me, and I turned around and I said, I don't think I know you.
Oh boy.
And he just passed away a couple of years ago. So I don't want to talk bad about him anymore. He really died, you know. So
got it, Chu. Yeah, I got it, Chu. And I believe this is the island right here where you were stationed, correct?
That's it. Yeah,
that's it, right down there. And the 7th Fleet would have been out here somewhere in the international waters.
I have no idea, and I think you're right, because when I took off, they gave me about the heading of 97, 097 or 96 or something. They keep changing every 7 minutes or 5 minutes. They come on and do that. I'll tell you the whole story some other time, because it take a lot of time. I don't want to take time from Dick.
I know, Chu, but I do want to say one more thing, and that is, again, before we started live here, you and I were talking, and you were saying that another person you felt betrayed by was Nguyen Cao Ky.
We never forget that.
Yes, who was the prime minister of South Vietnam. He was a dashing Air Force pilot. Here he is on the cover of Time magazine. He was seen as a potentially strong leader in South Vietnam. He had called for this great counterattack that would fight the North Vietnamese army, you know, to save Saigon. But at the same time, he fled also. And that was a disillusioning thing for you. You also ran into Ky later on the USS Midway and then at the refugee camp. And he also tried to talk to you.
No, he didn't try to talk to me. I tried to avoid him.
Oh, you tried to avoid him. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when did you learn finally that the war was over and that the Republic of Vietnam had essentially surrendered, and ARVN had surrendered to the North Vietnamese army?
It was about 10:30 or 11. I didn't see the clock, but I hear them on the channel when I was flying that morning, April 30th.
So you were flying. You were in the air.
Oh yeah, I was in the air. I was supporting Soc Trang ground force, but when we get to Soc Trang, we couldn't contact any ground friends down there, and I almost get shot when trying to get refuel at Soc Trang airfield, because they already occupied the Soc Trang POL, but they mistake us. When I approached for the fuel, they thought that we know they are down there. So they shot us before we touched down. And we didn't lose the translational lift yet. So we were able to break out. 2 of us, and then we went back to Can Tho for refuel. And in the refuel point, I received the order to give up, you know, drop your weapon and everything and wait for the North to come in and take over. And I talked to my crew and I said, I don't think we can do that. You know, we still have ammo and everything now. At least we can fight the last fight or something, do something. And I didn't have a chance to do that because of the order. And then I had to take off and I get rid of all my ammo and rockets and everything. I throw them all out because I was overloaded when people packed my aircraft. I couldn't lift it up. So, but I tell you what, Todd, I'll tell you later because I feel bad stealing the time from Dick Thompson here, because I think I also like to hear his story. I just want to take this opportunity to thank the U.S. Navy, to thank USS Midway carrier for picking us up in the open sea, because when I landed on Midway, I ran out of fuel. Because when I first saw it, my 20-minute light come on, and I don't know how long it took me. It seemed to me at that time like forever to get to the point touchdown. But I did touchdown on Midway, and I thank God and thank everybody for that. And later I thank the American people for their open arm, and every country in the world for their open arm to receive us, because we have no way to go.
You had no home, no
no
home left
to go back to.
How many
So-
passengers did you have aboard your helicopter?
Well, I only know when I was there counting it with the Marine Corps lieutenant, and he kept counting and counting, and we end up with 23. Plus our crew of 4 is 27, and it's not the number of people we used to take in the Huey.
I mean, that's beyond capacity for a Huey helicopter.
Yeah.
Far beyond. And here's some pictures. I believe this is the USS Midway. A helicopter has just landed. I don't know if this is your helicopter,
I don't know.
Chu. It may be.
I
Lots
don't have
of-
it. I don't have any American on board, so this have some Americans, so maybe it's not mine.
You did not have any Americans on board. Okay. Okay.
No.
Here's another one.
I took off from Concern, and people I picked up was from Concern. Oh, this is the major that flew the Cessna. Lý Bẩn. He flew the Cessna, and he was in the serious issue than I, because he's a fixed wing, and
Fixed wing.
fixed wing, and he couldn't have a communication with the tower. He had to throw his boot with a note in that, and it was a third try to drop the message down to the Midway board, and they had to control by light for him to come down.
Oh my.
And he has his family, the whole family of I don't remember correctly, but it's about 5 or something in his Cessna.
Oh man.
And his landing is a story. My landing is nothing. I just figure where I put down, I just put it. But he had to make a landing like on the runway, you know. And if you never land on the carrier before, I think it's tough.
You know, if people knew your story, Chu, of your life story of loss after loss after loss and struggle and hardship, I think people would wonder, like I wonder, how you could be now so positive and energetic, and I mean, you're smiling, you're you know, you were able to laugh. I mean, what?
I think I learned it from God, because I had the strong believing in God since the first day. I always believe in Him, and people make fun of me for making my sign before take off. I do that almost every morning. And I tell you, Todd, I got shot down 4 times, and none of us get wounded or anything like that. And I get God to thank for, because it's unbelievable the time that I was shot down. I mean, one time I was upside down in the tree, and we all escaped and ran away from the VC, and we didn't get captured. And we always talk about that with a smile, because I believe that if God didn't watch out for me, the bullet can get me anytime, because being shot at is nothing new to us. It's almost every heavy operation that we go out and support, we get shot, and we have holes in the aircraft, countless times. But 4 times I was shut down, and the first time I told you already is the day that they signed the Paris Agreement. That's how I trust VC.
They broke the ceasefire within a day of January 27th, 1973. Chu, thank you so much. You're such a hero. You're such an inspiration. And Don Nemchek just has written in the chat here, Mr. Lay is a honorable and courageous man. His tale of losing his country is compelling. He is an inspiration. Ed Blank says, I couldn't agree more, Don, an exceptional gentleman. Absolutely. Thank you, Chu. I know that you have duties to go on to, honor guard duties today. Please stay with us as long as you can, and please join us again.
Oh, I stay to listen to
Okay,
it.
great.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, and I'll get back to you some other time when you win.
Great,
But
great.
I don't want to cut off or steal anybody's time here.
Great. Thank you, Chu, so much. Thank you. And Dick, thank you also for joining us. Oh, what a story. Oh, what a story. So Dick, can you top that?
No,
Oh, I think he can top it.
no, I think he's got me beat. We should probably just listen to him, right? So,
Well, you're a very humble man. I do want to let people know again. I think we've already mentioned this, and I think Sean put in the chat here about your wonderful 3-part interview with Jocko podcast. Mm-hmm. It's a real eye-opening, journey of your service in Vietnam. I'm just going to turn the floor over to you. We have some pictures that you shared with us. I love this one that I'm going to share now that I think expresses. Here we go.
Can I ask Dick a question before we start?
Sure.
Hi, Dick. Were you in charge of them teaching us English in Defense Language School?
no.
Oh,
I can still count a little. Moat high by ball.
oh, okay.
But yeah, I've lost what Vietnamese I knew, I think.
Dick, could you start just by telling us how you got into MACV-SOG and what you knew about it?
Well, I went into the military, and my plan was to go to Vietnam because I wanted to, do my patriotic thing. So I volunteered to go in. I was going to stay in 3 years and then come back out because my plan was to be a research chemist. But once I got in the Army, they said, well, you should go to airborne school. You should go to OCS and become an officer. So they started offering me a lot of things, and I had a lot of fun. I mean, jumping out of airplanes was fun. And eventually I got to go to Special Forces qualification. I really enjoyed that. We got to do a lot of neat things. And then I went to Ranger training, became Ranger qualified. And then finally I got to go to Vietnam. All of my friends said, we're not sure what they do in SOG, but whatever you do not volunteer to be part of that organization. if you volunteer for SOG, you're going to die. Their casualty rate was over 200%, meaning everybody was either killed or wounded one or more times while they were there. So, and they wouldn't tell you what you were going to do or what SOG did. It was something super secret. And, when you start telling people tales like that, it makes them want to say, well, I'd like to be part of that. If you get to do really cool stuff.
I don't know, Dick. It sounds like your friends had pretty good advice. Stay away.
Yeah, they did. It's not until you, until you get in and it slowly is revealed to you what you're going to be doing that you realize you're going down a black hole, a very dangerous black hole. Typically, when hometown kids went to Vietnam, there'd be a big article in the paper about them and what unit they were assigned to and what they were doing. Not with SOG. When you went into SOG, you disappeared. So everyone thought that you were in Saigon, and that's where your mail went to. If your family wrote you a letter, it went to a mailbox in Saigon, and then it was delivered to wherever you were in Vietnam. In Vietnam it was just the base that we operated out of for the most part. The real SOG missions were outside of Vietnam, in other countries, Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, North Vietnam, DMZ. So there are a lot of other countries that you went into for the actual SOG missions. In Vietnam, we'd run missions, but it was really to help train us, let us have some targets that we'd shoot back. It makes a big deal in training. If you're used to shooting at silhouettes all the time and you don't have to worry about getting shot, that's different than when you're in battle and those targets are shooting back at you. So we rehearse and train a lot in South Vietnam, and then go out and do our missions. So,
I'm going to ask Sean. It just struck me as you were talking that we were inspired to find you and contact you and ask you to come on by one photograph that we saw that Sean actually saw first and passed on to me. And he said, "Look at this photo. Who are these guys?" Sean, I don't know if you want to try and find the photo and we could share it, and so people could see what photograph inspired us to get hold of you. But I imagine, Dick, that it would be I guess a kind of a lonely experience in the sense that your family couldn't know where you were, your neighbors and friends couldn't know where you were, you couldn't come back and talk about your experience at all. It was a sacrifice in more ways than one to join SOG.
Yeah, people didn't know what you were doing. I mean, even if you were killed, you would be reported as being killed in South Vietnam. So, I mean, there are a lot of tombstones out there now that say, Vietnam on them. That's not where the people were killed. So even your family didn't know where you were killed. They didn't know if you were missing in action. They didn't know really where you were missing. They were told you were missing in South Vietnam, but they didn't know.
Can you tell us? I want to let people know you wrote a book. You have a company. You're a real expert in leadership, all because of your experiences in MACV-SOG. But could you tell us the kinds of missions you personally went on?
Okay, you would have missions, and the military has made decisions, and the government has made decisions that won't allow these types of missions to be done anymore. I mean, you still have special forces, special operators going out on missions. You have SEAL teams and things like that. But the opponents that they're going after are different. So the first mission I went on, our job was to go find North Vietnamese battalion of 500 people that had kind of disappeared. Our intel had lost where they were. So our mission was to take our team, find those 500 people, and destroy them. So I went out with a 7-man team to find 500 and destroy them. So, and that was a small mission. And like I say, when you find SOG guys and started asking them about what they did, you know, the reaction you just got is what people have. No, you couldn't do that. You can't do that. I mean, that's what we did. So
Right. And,
I mean, we didn't, you know, just attack with 7 people and destroy them all.
Right.
We carried a big stick. So
Right.
We had a lot of air support with us that once we found you, if we could stay alive long enough to get the air support there, since we knew exactly where you were, we could guide the bombs, guide the miniguns, rockets, whatever we were using, we could put them right on you. We could see where you went, and we'd just keep pounding until, you know, we destroyed you. So, so those were, that was one kind, just to search and destroy. Some of them, you know, you went out to conduct wiretap missions, you know, so they had wires strung all over the place that they were communicating back and forth with, and we would go in and we would clamp into the wire, and we had a little state of the art then, a little cassette recorder that was recording the traffic on those lines. We would bring that back, and the intel guys would take it, and the CIA would listen to it. They'd get all kind of information about movements and what was going on from that. So there were a lot of different kinds of missions like that we would go on. And sometimes you did have a particular person that you might be going out to terminate. So you would, you know,
all that would be based on intel received that, you know, this actor was in the region.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So then you would go find him, you know, search for the unit that person was with, find the location, and, you know, take them out.
Dick, the mission that you were just talking about, the 7, you know, going up against 500, that was your first ever SOG mission?
Yes.
If you don't mind me asking, how did that mission end up? What transpired?
Actually, the intel was a little off. They were, normally we would insert away from a unit we were, you know, where we thought they might be, and then we would maneuver on the ground to go out and try to find them. On this one, we had dropped a 2,000-pound bomb in the jungle to blow a hole in the jungle canopy so the helicopter could set us down in it. So we came in just at last light, and the helicopter was kind of settling down in that hole. We were all out on the skids of the chopper getting ready to jump off into the bomb crater. And I had already bent my knees to get ready to jump off. And I saw movement out of the corner of my eye. And I looked, and there was a North Vietnamese soldier with a AK-47 standing there on the ground, you know, about 10 feet away from me, pointing the AK up toward me. And so instead of jumping off, I jumped back up on the edge of the helicopter. So as I jumped back up on the edge, you know, he fired a burst with his AK that hit the guy next to me, because I had just jumped out of the way. So I had to grab the back of his harness because he was falling off. And, you know, I put a half a magazine into the guy that shot at us. So he was terminated. And then the whole wood line opened up all around us. It was an ambush that they had set up to try to get all of us and get the helicopter. It's just that one guy jumped out about 10 seconds too soon. if he had waited, we would have all jumped off in the bomb crater and we couldn't have gotten back out.
Right.
They'd have had us all, but he was a little too anxious. So, so it was, quite a little firefight to be sitting inside the helicopter, and the bullets are crisscrossing on the inside as they're shooting from all directions at you. We had two Cobra helicopters that were flying as gunships. So as soon as the NVA opened up on us, the two Cobras opened up with their mini guns, and they're firing 4,000 rounds a minute with each minigun. So you got this stream of red tracers coming in, you got the green tracers coming back, helicopter rear ends taking hits. So it got a little hairy until we eventually got up out of there. Helicopter took a lot of hits, but it kept flying and we got out. So that one didn't go well, but it did introduce me to what it was like to be shot at by a whole bunch of people at one time, what fear was like, what it tasted like.
Was that the first time that you had been shot at?
Yeah, the first time. Yep. And, it's not like you see on the movies where there's 2 or 3 guys shooting at you. You get 20 or 30 people all shooting at you with AK-47s at the same time. And, they're 40 or 50 feet away from you. It'll get your attention. So it's a lot different from the movies.
I believe this is the photo that Sean shared with me. And he said, check out this photo that I saw. Who are these guys? and it turns out we found a lot more just like it. And I mean, this looks like something I can't quite tell. Is this a Cobra helicopter?
No, it's a CH-53. It's a Jolly Green Giant that has a long range on it, has a lot of lift capability. We use these sometimes if we were flying to North Vietnam, or if we were coming out of Thailand and had to fly across, a long distance to get somewhere. These are usually search and rescue helicopters to go in and try to pick up downed pilots. And sometimes our mission was to go in and find a pilot that had been shot down. So
Yes.
But this, you can see how many people he's picking up at one time there. A lot of times there's no landing zone for you to come out. So they drop a ladder, or in this case, I can't tell if they look like they're on a ladder there. It's a metal ladder they drop down, and you grab the ladder and snap into it, and they can lift you right up. Most of the time, and I don't think I sent a picture like this to you, but most of the time we came out on ropes. They'd drop four ropes, and we would hook onto the end of the rope, and one helicopter would pick up 4 of us.
That's the one that I sent.
Okay.
Because I was actually, oddly, I was scrolling through Instagram, social media, and this picture popped up, and I was kind of blown away by how dynamic it was, and terrifying, because they're not low to the ground there.
Oh, no.
And so, I brought that over to Todd and was just like, what is MACV SOG? Who are these? Do we like? And then, scrolling through the comments of the picture, someone mentioned your name, Dick, and we did our sleuthing, and Todd is well known for that with the BBC, and we ended up coming across you. And it's what?
Yeah, well, this is an extraction where they lifted a team out. The aircraft closest to us is a Cobra gunship. So we always had, a lot of air support when we were being inserted, when we were being extracted. Normally the extractions were pretty violent extractions. One of the neat things about SOG was that when you were on a mission like this, if you got compromised and the North Vietnamese were running over you, trying to take you, we had something we called a prairie fire emergency. When you sent that code, anything flying in Southeast Asia that was within range of that team that had armament was diverted to the team, because we couldn't afford, the government couldn't afford for a team to be captured. because we weren't supposed to be in the country to begin with. So you got everything in the area diverted to you to help you get out. So that was.
Larry Googans, I saw you shaking your head. Did you ever receive one of those?
I'm sorry.
Larry Googans is an Air Force
oh.
pilot retired from Vietnam with us. I don't know if Larry had ever received one of those codes.
No, I don't recognize that code. I recognize his description of some of the things that were going on. And we did get calls no, I don't remember that code at all, but we did get calls similar to that to go assist. But we never really knew who we were assisting or why. It was just, go here, bomb this, strafe this, whatever, something like that. If I could ask a quick question, and if Dick, you don't have to verify, with Ravens, were you working with Ravens?
I didn't work necessarily directly with them. We had 3 camps. Mine was working up in the northern area, North Vietnam, northern Cambodia, up in that area. We had a central group of SOG guys that were working lower Cambodia and some of, Laos. And then we had a southern one that was working. So, and they had different groups supporting them, with air assets. So I've heard Ravens. I'm just not sure who they were supporting.
Yeah, that's another story, Sean, that I think is declassified now. But just remember the word Raven.
Raven,
Raven.
And speaking of declassified, Carol Popjock asked a question here, Dick, in the chat. After the 20-year periods of silence had passed, was any effort made to level with the surviving families about how and where and why their loved ones actually died, or are these relatives mostly still kept in the dark?
For them, there's been a lot of effort to bring them on board, to let them know, because we still have a lot of missing in action people. So there's something like close to 50 SOG guys, I think, still out there someplace. And you have a lot of pilots that are missing too, that were shot down, after their bombing runs or even, supporting us. You have helicopter pilots that were shot down that were their bodies were never recovered. So there's still a lot of missing people, and the families have been notified, but like I say, you'll still see tombstones out there, that say Vietnam on it when, it was really Laos or someplace else. But the families know.
And this was in 68, 69 that you were operating?
When I got there. SOG started in 64, went 64 to 72. I was there 68, 69.
And mostly, outside of that time that deployed, you were training as well, correct? Training other trainees.
Right. Yeah, I was instructor for Special Forces. I was on a Special Forces team, but we also trained Special Forces. Before I went, when I came back, I was training Rangers for a while before I went to another unit. Mm-hmm. So we had SEALs come through the training and, other special ops kind of people.
Going back to that first mission, you come out of that sort of the drop zone. There's high contact there. This was your first mission. Did you think like, oh boy, I made a big mistake in joining SOG, or boy, I should have listened to my friends?
It was more of, I guess, right then, and during the action and on the flight back, it was like I never knew that level of fear existed. I mean, I'd been scared and I thought about being scared, but when you're watching the tracers coming and they're crisscrossing inside the cargo compartment of the helicopter, they're coming all around you. You got your people behind you shooting. You're getting burns from the muzzle flashers from your guys shooting out of the helicopters. You got the door gunners shooting. You got, the miniguns. And one thing, I didn't realize about miniguns when they were shooting, the bullets don't hit the ground and just go into the ground. I mean, most of them will ricochet. They'll hit a rock, hit a tree, do something, and it'll bounce off. They go all over the place. So when you're sitting right there in the middle and you got thousands of these bullets coming and hitting all around you, they're also ricocheting. So you have those plus the bad guy bullets plus the ones you're firing out there. And I had trouble after I emptied the first magazine. I couldn't get my second magazine out of the pouch to reload. My hand was covered with the blood coming, from the guy I'd pulled in there next to me, and he's rolling around and banging into me. My guys are shooting, next to my head. And I couldn't get the magazine out of the pouch. It was so tight. Eventually got it out. Then I had trouble getting it in because, when you're shooting silhouettes, I mean, you can change magazines really fast. It's not a big deal. But once the fear hits you, you begin, I won't go into all the psychology of it, but you lose your fine motor coordination, your fine motor skills, and just trying to put the magazine in the weapon becomes a bigger ordeal than you would think. So one of the things you've got to learn how to do very quickly is recognize the fear, but you have to control it. You have to move the fear over, and you can be as scared as you want to be, understand the impact it's going to have on you so you can still do your job. The idea is keep shooting, keep the bullets going at them, keep doing what you're supposed to be doing. And, the fear just has to get out of the way so that you can still function. And then when we got back on the ground, I was the second in command on that team that day. The team leader, he called me over and he said, Lieutenant, you're going to have to learn to change magazines a lot faster or you're going to die. I said, yes, sir. I thought I could change fast, but I didn't realize how much I was going to get slowed down, once the stress level went up. So that's one of the things that caused me later on to go back to school and change from chemistry to psychology so that I could understand, what happens to you when you get that scared.
And you wrote this book, The Stress Effect.
And, it's just like now when, we see a lot of things going on with the police, for example, taking a lot of criticism about how they do things. When your stress level skyrockets, when you're about to shoot somebody or somebody is shooting at you, it impacts your ability to make decisions significantly. There are ways to train, and special ops guys train a lot to be able to function under the high stress. But you have to understand, you've been shooting at targets on a range, and you can see the sights on the weapon, and you can see the target, and you can, shoot little tiny holes in the target. But when somebody starts shooting at you, you can't see your sights anymore. Your vision changes. You can't focus on the sights on the weapon while your stress level is high. You can't do the fine motor skill kinds of things that you could normally do. Load, fasten handcuffs, all kinds of things you can't do when your stress level goes up. So one of the things that, over my career, I've spent trying to teach people, law enforcement, special ops guys, whatever, here's how your body reacts to the high stress. And regardless of what you've trained to do, here's what it's going to do. It will take over and cause you to do things a certain way unless you keep training and training that way. So
and everybody kind of reacts to stress in a different way.
They react to the triggers differently. The stress itself is the same for everybody. It's the same physiological response that occurs, the vision changing and things like that. That still occurs. Now, how the trigger, the event, the people shooting at you or whatever it is, how you respond to that varies, and you can train to be able to respond to that in effective ways. But you've got to go train, and you got to do it as realistically as possible. And just shooting on a range, it helps, but it's not gonna. It's just a different world when people are shooting back. And like I mentioned before, if you've got a couple of guys shooting at you, that's one thing. When you've got 20 of them with AK-47s shooting at you, and they're firing B-40 rockets at you, and the rockets are exploding all around you, and they're throwing hand grenades, and these are trained professionals who are coming after you, they can get your attention. So,
someone asked in the chat, what rank did you finish at?
I retired as a lieutenant colonel.
And also, I wish you, it's interesting because just last Thursday, we had this conversation, Ron Gianta put here in the chat. We were talking about new military technology on last Thursday's program, and we were talking about all the stuff that's going to be coming out for the Army, and then got a bit into some of the new technology that Vietnam veterans were using, back into World War II veterans were using. Ron says that Raven teams in the Security Forces Squadron had an array of various weapons to do their missions instead of the M16 or 9mm handgun. Did the MAC SOG have an array of unconventional weapons not normally issued?
SOG had whatever it wanted that was available at the time. When you see pictures of SOG teams, most people will be carrying what was called a CAR-15 at that point. It's a much smaller version of the M16. It has a shorter barrel on it. It has a sliding stock on it. So it's more of a carbine. So it's much smaller. It has a bigger flash suppressor on it. It's lighter. So most people carried that. But it depended. Some missions, when you went in as if you were North Vietnamese. And I know Chu was saying, man, that's against the Geneva Convention. You can't do that. Well, that's right. I mean, SOG teams went in sterile. You had nothing, no names, no dog tags, no ID cards, nothing, that was American. So if you were captured, you were automatically a spy. In this particular picture, that's a CAR-15 you see in my hand there. So most SOG teams carried that. It was easier to maneuver through the jungle, the thick brush with, and particularly up north where I was, we were under double and triple canopy jungle a lot. I mean, most of the time when I engaged a bad guy, I mean, he might be 20 feet away from me. I mean, it was just right there. A lot of times you could just see the movement in the undergrowth. You couldn't even see the person sometimes. So the CAR-15 worked well. But if you were going in dressed as North Vietnamese, then you carried an AK-47. You had on all North Vietnamese uniform and equipment.
You went in dressed as North Vietnamese.
Sometimes on some of the missions. Because when you went in, if they saw you coming in, you wanted them, when they first see you, to think that you were them. You're just one of the guys. And all of the SOG teams, and this is the last team I had here, all of the SOG teams you have indigenous. You have usually there's 3 Americans and 9 either Vietnamese, Laotian, Montagnards, so they were different mercenaries, and they were mercenaries. They were paid a salary to come in and go out on these missions. And I mean, when you see one of them without a shirt on, they're just scar tissue. They've been hit so many times, and they keep doing it. And they were great out there. So. But, particularly if you had a Vietnamese team, a lot of them could understand some of what the North Vietnamese were saying. Um, and at a distance, they could pass off as a North Vietnamese, when you're all dressed up. So that would give us an advantage sometimes to be able to get away or to be able to get the drop on the bad guys and do whatever we were going to do. But yeah, we had a lot of different uniforms, different weapons. Some of our people carried RPD, light machine gun.
RPD?
Yeah, it's a Soviet machine gun, has a big drum on it, so it's much smaller than our M60, but it's firing the same ammunition as an AK-47, but it's got a 100 round drum on it. So when you first made contact, that gave you a lot of firepower and that initial burst that you could put out there. With the CAR-15s and 68, we were still using 20 round magazines, and the NVA had 30 round magazines. So when you first clashed, I mean, they had 10 more bullets before they had to reload. There's an RPD. Yeah. So with this, and with that drum on there, you could shoot for a long time, and it shoots very fast. It's very deadly, much smaller than our M60, so it was easier to go through the jungle with. So it wasn't uncommon for us to have the second guy in the formation to be carrying one of these, so that we had that kind of firepower up front.
There was a gun that you were going into combat with. Did you like the Russian made, like the AK-47s or the RPD?
They tended to work when they were dirty. The M16 had a lot of problems, particularly in the beginning. Once they got dirty, muddy and wet, they malfunction a lot. Could you put that picture back up of me standing there holding my CAR-15? Or something I can show you on that. No, the first one was just me alone. Okay, if you look at the barrel and you can see the sight, but it looks like there's something right in there sticking out beyond the sight, that's a cleaning rod. So what we would do is we would take a cleaning rod, which is already extended, and we'd just fasten it onto the side of the weapon. That way, if it did jam, I can jerk the cleaning rod out, ram it down through the barrel to push out a shell that didn't eject. So it helps us if we did have a jam, while we were firing, and we would shoot a lot. I probably carried more ammunition than most people, but on a typical mission, when we were using the 20 round magazines, I carried 50. Most people would carry 28, maybe 30. I carried 50 because I tended to shoot a lot. I like to put 3 or 4 rounds burst on automatic, particularly when the undergrowth is thick and it's hard to see them. But even though I was leading the teams, I still like to shoot a lot. So.
Not to mention the really nice watch. For whatever reason in that picture, I've noticed that really nice watch. Dick, as a civilian myself, you hear of special ops, black ops, and there's this sort of like almost mythological star quality, this thing of like, it really captures the imagination of the normal, I think, everyday American. And do you have any idea of why that is? What do you think?
Well, some of it is, if you ever see one of these teams, and I remember when I first got there, we were riding up to Da Nang, where we would get our assignments, in SOG, and a SOG team came up to ride on the same bus with us. They make the hair stand up on the back of your neck. There's something around them that they are scary. When you look at them, they scare you. And if they're in the mess hall, it doesn't matter. When you get around those special ops teams, if you're not one of them, they will definitely make the hair stand up, because you can see it in their eyes. You can hear it when they talk. They may laugh and joke around with each other a little bit, but when they go to work, they're extremely serious.
Did you
Yeah.
find yourself that way as well?
Um, I remember when I saw that first team, I thought, holy cow. I wonder, I wonder if I will ever have that effect on other people. And yeah, it will. After a few missions, you get that way.
Yeah, but Dick, what's so remarkable about talking to you right now is you're Clark Kent. I mean, you're a mild-mannered, research chemist. When you said that you wanted to be a research chemist, I thought, yeah, that fits the person I'm talking to. Max Sog, the kind of special operations you were on, you do not fit the profile, as Don Nemchik said here in the chat, of the Rambo style guy who's, you want to make sure that you steer clear of, because you don't know what they're going to do. I mean, you seem kind of intellectual about it. I could see now how you were able to take what you experienced in SOG and turn it into lessons on leadership and on stress.
Well, I'm getting ready to come out with a SOG book later this year, but I've got a photo in there that was taken inside of our lounge. So there's, I don't know, 6 or 7 of us there kind of gathered around with our normal clothes, just jungle fatigues on. And, we're in, it's a bar. So we're kind of laughing. We were doing a little going away party for one of the guys. And underneath that picture is a little caption that says, these guys, I mean, this picture, except for the uniform, could be a bunch of frat guys having a party. And, they're some of the nicest guys you'd ever want to meet until they put their work clothes on. And then you don't want to be anywhere around them. Everything changes when you put your work clothes on. When I'm standing on the skid of that helicopter coming in, everything changes. And when I jump off and hit the ground, yeah, I'm coming for you.
Just like Clark Kent, when he goes into the telephone booth, comes out a different man. I mean, seriously, that's what I'm reminded of. And I want to open it up to questions. I know a lot of our people here have questions. And I specifically want to say hi to Warren Goss, who landed, Dick, you'll be interested to know, on Utah Beach on D-Day with the 531st Special Brigade. And I was watching his reaction as you were sharing some of your stories, and he was nodding, especially as you were talking about the fear and the reloading, learning how to reload more quickly. Warren, I just want to ask, is some of the things that Dick is saying here you could relate to from your combat in World War II? Warren, I'm going to ask if you could unmute yourself there. Oh, we can't hear you, Warren. If you could unmute yourself.
I can understand. It was completely different than what I did. That guy went through hell, and I thought I had it bad, but he had it a lot worse, Todd. And I got a lot of respect. And that young fella from South Korea, God, I'll tell you, what these guys did, they'll never get paid back for what they did.
And I love that you call Chu a young fella. Do you hear that, Chu?
Yeah,
Thank you.
What he's
Thank
been
you.
eating. I got to find out what he eats, because he sure looks a lot younger than I do.
And I want to say one more thing before we move on from Warren here. Warren, have you heard from Antoine Le Courtois?
Yes.
You have.
And yes, I got his picture right here. It's right. Yeah, we got that picture.
Well, this is so great. So this young
Maybe
man.
you can help me. Hey, Todd.
Yeah.
Maybe you can help me. He wants a patch of my brigade And he also wants the seahorse that we wore on our hat.
He's got it. I'll send it to him.
I want you to send it to me so I could send it to him.
All right, we'll talk about it. Okay, let me.
Okay.
He'll get the patch.
Rhonda has talked to him quite a bit so far.
And
Yeah.
Rhonda, does he speak any English or no?
I don't know. We just email. We
Okay.
email.
Okay.
They have a reenactment over there, you know. And he said he emailed and said he wants to be a Warren Goss.
Yes, that's what I wanted to explain to people. Is I got an email from Antoine right here, pictured on the right, who is a World War II reenactor who lives in Normandy, France, and every D-Day, June 6th, he goes out and reenacts as an American landing at Utah Beach. He's read about and heard about Warren's story with the Veterans Breakfast Club, and he emailed me and said, and you could kind of tell that he had translated the email, and he said, I want to be Warren Goss. I want to be the 19-year-old Warren Goss. And I need more details about his life so I could have the correct outfit on when I'm reenacting. I'm going to take on his character. And so I put him in touch with Warren, and I said, I would love to have you and Warren come on our program.
Right here.
Yeah, right here on Zoom. I think it would be so much fun to have him talk about, reenacting you on the beach.
Yeah, that's what he said. But anyway, that's two people we got in touch with over there. Have you ever got back to Frederick?
I have not heard back from Frederick. I did email him, but I have not heard back.
We better talk to him too.
Yeah, Rhonda will talk to him, but we'll get Antoine on also, and let's talk about that patch. I'll get the patch to him, or I'll get it to you to get to him. But I just thought
the seahorse.
I could get the seahorse. I'll get
Good.
the seahorse.
I told him that's what I'd send him. See,
Okay.
and some pictures and articles out of the paper.
And
Okay.
the 531st land, sea, and
Yeah,
air.
he's good. Yeah.
Land, sea, and air patch.
Okay, we will. We'll get him what he needs. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, that is the neatest thing. And you're doing okay, Warren? I heard about you.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, here.
You're here. All right. All right. Well, it was just so interesting to hear Dick talk and see Warren responding and understand that, there's some similarities over time. Does anybody else have questions or comments they want to make about Dick, of Dick? Jim Roberts.
And Dale.
Oh, Jim, can you unmute?
Jim, you're muted.
Come on. There we go. Okay.
There we go.
Mute. Dick, I was on a MAD team in 71. I did nothing like you did. We lived with the Vietnamese, but we weren't operating like you were. After Tet, they started Vietnamization, and the MAD teams came on board to take the place of a lot of special forces that were drawing back. How much was SOG reduced during Vietnamization from the heavy use in 68, 69 through 70, 71? Were their activities pulled back? Were they reduced in number like SF was?
Yeah, gradually toward 72. One of the things they started trying to do was have all Vietnamese teams. So replacing the Americans, with ARVN soldiers. So they would lead the team rather than have Americans on it. That last team that I had, when they showed the picture of earlier, that was supposed to be one of those. I was training it. Vietnamese captain was going to be the leader of it, but it ended up, that didn't work out. So I got to keep the team, and it was a really good team. We had a lot of good missions together, but yeah, there were some changes that started to happen. The North Vietnamese got a lot smarter. In 69, they began to figure out that we were how to watch for us, and they put towers up on mountaintops so they could see the helicopters coming and see where they landed. So it gave them a lot quicker response to go out and try to find us when, when we were inserted someplace. They began to learn that if we made contact, the closer they could get to us, the less likely we were to put napalm or bombs or whatever on them. So we call it hugging. They would try to hug us and get so close that we couldn't put it, on them without hitting ourselves. So they developed a lot of new tactics and techniques, in the 70s. And so we continued to lose a lot of teams. I mean, we had a lot of teams that got off the helicopter, radioed a team okay, and have never been seen again. So whole team.
One of the things when we were there is special forces led the teams. They were in command. When we were there, we were not in command. We had no command unless the leadership was eliminated. They were just down to basic riflemen. We had no command authority. We were there just to observe and advise. Was that the way they operated when they started Vietnamizing the SOG groups? Were you in command, or were you there just to advise?
Like when I took the team out that was supposed to be converted, I could still override the Vietnamese captain. My job was to make sure the team went out and accomplished the mission and came back. But I was also there to evaluate him.
Yeah.
I had to evaluate him. So.
Ron Sajian, would you mind asking your question? It's an interesting one. I had the same question in the chat here. You put an interesting question, Ron.
Certainly, Dick. I was recognizing the fact that you have expertise in the subject of stress and have a book out on it, and I just wonder how you deal with your own post-traumatic stress that, to me, seems to be inevitable.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to be in combat and not end up with some of it. And different people are able to handle it at different levels, different ways to deal with it. I also find that sometimes you're dealing with it pretty well, until you get to maybe 60 or so. When you start getting older, it starts to come back out. In fact, I find that old guys like me tend to talk more about war than they did when they were younger. But it also brings some of the stress back out. So helping others, I do a lot of work with vets, particularly around suicide awareness. So I have a lot of veterans that I talk to on a regular basis, that I track, or that I refer out to, different resources. So I think that helps me. I think when I came back from Vietnam, the fact that I stayed in the service, that gave me someone I could talk to that could understand what I was saying. Because if you came back and you got out and went back to civilian life, nobody could understand what you were talking about. I mean, they hear your words, but they have no clue.
And especially in your instance where you couldn't talk about it, you weren't allowed to talk about it.
Yeah. So, but we could still talk about combat and things like that. So I still, everybody at that time that I was around still on active duty, I mean, they'd all been to Vietnam or getting ready to go. So I just didn't talk about SOG exactly or what we did, but I still talk about combat and what it's like. So you do have people who understood, but veterans who get out, you lose that in a lot of cases. Unless you can find a group to get into, or unless there's some other vets that live around you someplace, that you can talk to, that can be helpful. Yeah.
Dale,
go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Dick. Dale, I think you had a question. Dale Gower.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I have a couple books by John Plaster, I think that's how I pronounce his name.
Yes.
He was in SOG, I think in 69 and 70. He has a couple books out. One of them's a history of SOG. in Vietnam, and I was wondering how accurate, if he's familiar with them and how accurate they were. And also in the book, he describes at the MACV headquarters in Saigon, apparently the North Vietnamese had a spy, and the Americans felt that they had to share the information of their operation with the Vietnamese, and that information would go to the North Vietnamese, and they would know where the SOG teams were being inserted. If he was, I was just wondering if he was familiar with any of that.
Yes. John did a lot of missions with SOG. He was working, I think, in Command and Control Central, in the central part of the country. He put one of the first books out there, I think, that really talked directly about it. Good overviews, good history. He talked about a lot of people in his book. And he's done a lot of work in the background around SOG and the veterans. So yeah, I mean, I've got his book. I read it. I enjoyed it. There were spies there. I mean, one of the last missions that I went on, we were carrying the Army's latest, most encrypted, secure radio available in the world. And I got a call about 2100 one evening when we were out on a mission. And this is strange, but I had a North Vietnamese woman call me on this radio that no one else should have been able to call me on, and read my obituary. read the obituary of the whole team. And I mean that, and she didn't just read off our names and say we were killed in action that day. She played, and I don't know, some of you might remember when you were little, that on the radio every day at lunch, at the news, they would read off the obituary of people who had died in your county or, around like that. And if you were, I don't know what it was like up north, but down south, they also played this particular type of music in the background while they were giving the obituary in details. She played the same music.
Oh my God.
You had the music playing in the background. There were 20 of us on the mission. She read off all their names, that we were all killed in action that day. And there were only two people on that side of the world at that time who knew that I went by the name of Dick and not Henry. She read my name off as Dick Thompson. And the other two people I know were not out in the field anyway. There was no way she could have talked to them to find out that name. So, I know she was playing mind games with me by the funeral music and then, calling me Dick Thompson. And then it went downhill from there. So there were a whole bunch of people out there that night that were on their way down to take care of us. And, it was interesting. But I mean, this is a radio. You had a key gun that had 21 manual settings on it that you had to set and push it into the radio. It was a KY38 radio, and it had a KY28 code gun. You had to set that thing every day. There's no way you could figure out what the codes were. You had to have the code book. But she was talking to us on our frequency. And, we never found out how she had the code and had the radio to be able to do that with.
Terrifying.
But after we lost the country, did you know that there's a lot of spy in the Republic of Vietnam system. Even the general, even up to the rank of general, as spy.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
They were there. I mean, you know, in our compound at Da Nang, you know, it's a top secret compound, but we had local civilians who worked there in the laundry or doing maintenance inside the you know, so we had local civilians working in there. They were not allowed around certain places, but you know, they were picking up information and transmitting it. So
Oh, that gives me chills. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, talking about getting in the system on the April 30th, when we flying out to the open sea, there's voices from the North Vietnamese coming in and telling us not to believe those Americans, because they just lure you to the open sea, and they are not there.
Oh.
There's no 7th Fleet or anything out there. Don't believe them. And of course, I know that because I had talked to an RTC, a traffic control. So I know that they gave us the right direction, and I know that is the real American sound.
Yeah.
And the voice of the Viet Cong, they try to speak English, but you know, we can tell. You can tell it's not and that's what happened to a lot of people. They wasn't firm enough to know that the VC is lying.
Right.
So they label them the American for being liar. They say they lie to you. They said they are in the open sea, but they are not. Don't go out there and you die on the sea. And some of us, I heard on the system, I didn't talk to them, but I heard some of us say, well, we'd rather die in the open sea than go back, because we won't be alive with you anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Go down fighting.
Yeah.
Dick, I ran across this photo of you in another wonderful article. I put the link here in the chat. This is you on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve?
Yeah, we had, you know, there was a ceasefire in Vietnam for, you know, the U.S. didn't want anybody getting killed on, you know, Christmas. So there was a ceasefire, but it didn't extend to SOG, because that just meant the North Vietnamese were going to have some free time to do a lot of things we didn't want them to do. So we still went out on missions, and, you know, I've just got off the helicopter there back at the launch site. So I'm covered from head to toe in mud and blood, and just having a cold Coke. I mean, you can't, I mean, I know some of you are saying, why not a cold beer? Coke was the first thing I came to, and it was cold.
Well, you're from Georgia.
It's 100 and something degrees there in the shade, and I was tired and thirsty, and man, that was good. But yeah, this is, you can tell I need to be scrubbed down a little there, but it was, we almost didn't get out, and you know, it was a pretty tough fight to get loose from them and get back. So.
Oh man, do we have any other questions or comments?
I would like to thank Dick and all the Vietnam veterans who spent their life in that war over there. And though we didn't get to win or anything, but we never forget you guys. Okay, thank you so much.
All you vets, whether you were World War II, Korea, wherever you were. Yeah. And Warren, I appreciate you sharing with us earlier. And you know, when you were running across that beach, I mentioned something about having to reload my Car 15. You had to also be careful about that M1 thumb, you know, getting your thumb out of there in time before that boat slapped forward on it. So that just added to your stress.
I know Bob Young, Jim Roberts, and Warren Goss all have questions. Bob Young, how are you?
Good. I was going to say, in World War II, we had Tokyo Rose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then 2 hours after we ran into another ship, he says they got so many ships at Iwo Jima, they're running into one another.
Yeah. We had Hanoi Hannah that played that same role as Tokyo Rose. She was all the time putting out information. So, yeah. But I appreciate what all you guys did.
Oh, how interesting. Jim Roberts?
Can you put the last slide of Dick up that you showed?
Yes.
The one that I look good in.
Yeah.
The
this
one that we Photoshop. Oh, no.
You just wanted to point out how scrubbed he is. Notice there's no U.S. Army and there's no name tag on those fatigues.
Yeah. There's nothing
That's
on
right.
me except the coat that
Clean.
says
Well,
U.S.
they're clean from an identification point of view. There's no dog tags around his neck either.
No
Nothing.
dog tags.
Yeah. You see no ID. We went in, we called it sterile. So all missions, you were sterile, nothing US, nothing to identify you.
Dick, what were you prepared to do, or what were you told to do in case you were captured?
Don't get captured.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I have a friend that carried, and he tells his story a lot. He carried a hand grenade on his harness, right up at the top. And he said, that's the one I never will throw. He said, that one's for me.
Oh, man.
Yep.
Yes.
And you were prepared to do that?
Yeah, I was not going to be captured.
Man, I want to share with people your website. I don't know if you want to have anything to say about your company here, which is High Performing Systems Incorporated, and you're also the author of The Stress Effect. And I love the subtitle of The Stress Effect, which is, let me see here, it's how why smart leaders make dumb decisions and what to do about it.
Yeah, it talks about the impact of stress and how it impacts your ability to make good decisions. And, we all get stressed, and your stress level goes up and down all day long, depending on what's going on, how hot it is, who you're talking to. I mean, it's constantly going up and down. And anytime it's up, you're not going to make as good of a decision as when your stress is lower. Right. So part of what we try to teach people is self-awareness, know when you're getting a little stressed out. Sometimes I tell my guys, could we take about a 30-minute break before we make that decision? Because I can feel, maybe I've got some stress from something else going on, and I want to be able to focus clearly, on an important decision. So I just put a little time in there to de-stress a little bit. But when you're on the battlefield, you have to make, decisions all the time, just constantly making decisions, and decisions have consequences.
Yeah.
And, in battle, those consequences are people's lives. So you need to be aware of that.
I want to go to Ron Gianta at the VA, at the VBA, because I know he has an announcement or two to make. But I also want to ask you, Dick, I'm so grateful that you wrote a memoir, and or at least you wrote a book about MACV-SOG. When is that book coming out, and what's the title?
Before Christmas.
For Christmas.
The working title right now is Dead Man Walking.
Great title, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's just, it's SOG through my eyes, what I experienced, it's just my journal of here's how I got there, here's what I experienced, here's what I saw. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not for the people who don't want to know what goes on in war. So there are things in there that will shock a lot of people. And, so just read it with that caution when it comes out.
Would love to have you back on when it comes out.
Well, love to.
Okay. Yeah. And would love to have you on anytime you want to drop in and join us. Boy, this is so fascinating. Ron Giunta, how are you?
I'm doing fine. Hey, I'd like to show you something. As you can see, this is a bush hat from Vietnam, and it was given to my father by a pilot of a C-121. Okay, great. That was an Air Force shirt. That was an Air Force hat I showed you. The blue and white's Air Force. But it was given to my father by a pilot of a C-121 out of Pittsburgh who was flying medical airlift missions out of Vietnam back in 1968. And my father, who was a senior master sergeant in food service, always made sure that they had their boxed lunches, their flight meals, their jerry cans that plugged into the C-121 filled with coffee and anything they needed as they were getting relief Pittsburgh to head over to South Vietnam to bring back the wounded. And I've had that hat ever since, hanging on my wall. It's just something that was close to my heart about Vietnam vets. Dick, you're an unsung hero, and everybody you served with and all your teams are unsung because your stories are so untold because of the sensitive nature of what you had done. So on behalf of the VA, I just want to say welcome home and thank you for everything that you have done. Now, down to business. The VA has a program called the Caregiver Program, and I sent you an email, Todd, on that. The Caregiver Program is designed to help the people who help the veterans, the caregivers, whether you're doing their shopping, you're helping those folks that are stranded in their homes for aid and attendance. But what's really important about this is the VA changed the program last fall from Gulf War veterans to extending it all the way down to Vietnam veterans, Korean War veterans, and veterans of World War II. And this is paramount in helping our veterans who are stricken at home, they're housebound, or they need help in doing their everyday activities. Fast story, I had the opportunity to help a Vietnam veteran in the last week who's seriously ill, and he didn't know where to turn. They called a doctor at the VA who contacted us in Pittsburgh. Within 4 business days, we had this veteran approved for 100% disability. I just got his wife out as a dependent yesterday because of the seriousness of his illness. I also talked to her yesterday, and I've got folks who are going to reach out to her and tell her about the Caregiver Program for aid and attendance, where she'll be receiving compensation. That's under the Comprehensive Assistance Program. She'll get compensation, or a family member will be compensated to help them, okay, and get them the help they need. So the Caregiver Program, which used to be for Gulf War veterans as a result of the Wounded Warrior Program, as of last October, has been extended all the way down through to our Vietnam veterans, Korean War veterans, and veterans of World War II. And there's more changes coming up with that, Todd. And thank you for showing that, what I showed you. The website was also there where anybody who knows of anybody who needs in-home assistance can go to that website and get all the information they need, or what the phone number, the toll-free phone number is to call. Also, maybe in the future, if you want, Vanessa Beck, we could have her come on board at the Breakfast Club just to give a little 15-minute rundown on the Caregiver Program. She's one of the primary points of contact for the Caregiver Program for veterans in the Pittsburgh area.
Thank you very much, Ron. And that reminds me, we're doing a program tonight with Humana on caregiver support, Caregiver Support 101, we're calling it. It's at 7 p.m. You do have to register for it. You could go to the website, our website, veteransbreakfastclub.org, and go under the programs, and it's there with our Humana programs. It's an information session, 7 p.m. tonight. You have to register for it. I put the registration link in the Zoom chat here. And I've got to say, Ellie could probably chime in and confirm this, but I think we have something like 150 people signed up for it, which very much surprises me. And I've probably gotten about 20 emails about it with very specific questions about caregiver support. And it just reminds me how ubiquitous this issue is. You're either going to receive care or you're going to give care as part of your life cycle. And those who are, it's not easy to do either. I think it's not easy for a lot of people to receive care. It's not easy to give care. and I think there's a lot to learn in both sides of it. So anybody who wants to join us, you're welcome. I just wanted to make that plug.
You know, with the passage of the Blue Water Navy Act and how now we go 12 miles out from the shores of Vietnam for Agent Orange exposure, we have so many more veterans today who are afflicted with the presumptive illnesses from Agent Orange. And that's where this is really going to come into play and be very important to helping all these veterans.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you, John. I mean, Ron. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Ron. And thank you. Oh, Dick. Yes.
Two things. One, thank you, Ron. Appreciate all that you're doing and the information you're sharing with us. If I could go back to that picture of me standing alone with the weapon, I just wanted to say one thing that you might find interesting. Okay, there's the little boonie hat that I wore, just showing my hat. But what I wanted to say about that is, if I take that hat and turn it inside out, it's orange, bright day glow orange on the inside. When you come running out of the jungle wood line to get on the helicopter to be extracted, that door gunner sitting there, he's looking for anything that looks like a North Vietnamese. And when you come running out of there with a Vietnamese team, you look like the North Vietnamese. So we turn our hats inside out and say, don't shoot the orange hat. So they would let us be able, so we still had to get past our own good guys just to get out because they couldn't tell us apart coming out of there. So anyway, that's my hat story.
Hey, Dick. Dick,
yes.
Is there any occasion that they capture your hat and then they play you running out to the helicopter?
They could, but I don't know of any cases where sometimes they would just come running out of the woods with us. If they got a chance, they'd be at the back and just follow us out. So without hats.
I have friends who fly for the special forces, and they said that sometimes the VC would wear our uniform.
Oh yeah.
And run out and try to get aboard.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And they get a hold of our smoke grenades. So when you're trying to put in an airstrike, you're bringing in the gunships. You do things like, I would say, pop and smoke. And I would throw a smoke grenade out, and then the pilot would have to say, I identify purple. And then I would say, go for it. Put it where I told you. If it was a different color, I would say, bad guys, take them out. So you couldn't say what color you were throwing because sometimes they would throw the same thing in a little different location, and the gunship pilot didn't know who's who all of a sudden. So there were a lot of interesting things going on, just little things that you had to do to stay alive.
Dick, I've been working with veterans and listening to their stories since 2008, and I've probably heard thousands of stories from veterans. What you have said today is new to me. And I think I'm just stunned that I've gone through these years and spoken with so many veterans, but never talked with a MACV SOG veteran. Yeah, Special Forces veteran. I heard stories about you guys from some of our veterans, one of whom is George Metz, and he just worked. He was a door gunner on a helicopter that would go out and drop you off and pick you up. He wasn't one of you, but he was around you, and he shared some stories with me. I tried to get Ken Rizicki knows this. I tried to get George to come on today, but he doesn't have an email. He doesn't have a computer. And when he shared his phone, he showed me a picture of his phone, and I said, "Yeah, that's not going to cut it, George. You're not going to be able to join our program with this phone that you have." I'm kind of kidding. George Metz is a Vietnam veteran and a great guy, but he doesn't do Zoom. He would have loved to have met you and heard some of these stories and chimed in with what he saw. So next time I see him, I'm going to talk to him about you.
There's nothing, but the greatest respect for the helicopter pilots. that came out. The door gun. I thought one time I might want to be a door gunner. I changed my mind very quickly when I saw what they went through every day. I said, no, I don't want to do that. You know, admiration for Chew. We had a group called the King Bees who did a lot of our insertions and extractions, Vietnamese Air Force. And just, you know, they were always great. I mean, one of the pilots that inserted us a lot, you know, I was reminded of with Chew a while ago. I think on one of the insertions with me, he was shot down for the third time. So I got to experience his third shot down with him, but on the fourth time that he was shot down, he lost both hands, so he couldn't fly anymore.
Oh, boy, oh boy. Boy, these stories are so fascinating. Dick, thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Chew. I hope both of you will join us again. And Dick, I mean, I would just love to put you on our email list to keep you up to date on our programs. You'd be so welcome to join us anytime. Anytime for any reason. And we are going to ask you to come back if you don't mind when your book comes out. And man, I'll be first in line to read that book because it sounds like a.
And you know, if you're on Facebook, if you just go to Dick Thompson, you know it's my my Facebook, because most of what you'll see is me doing push-ups for for veteran suicide awareness. So
22,
every day.
22 push-up a day.
I actually do 60 plus, and this Friday you'll make 700 days of doing that, 40 something thousand push-ups so far. So
wow.
But anyway, I do it at Veterans Day speeches. You know, I drop down in the middle of a speech and knock out the 22 push-ups or whatever, just to raise awareness.
That 22. I'm on that 22 a day.
Yeah, every day we're losing 22 vets to suicide.
And
we need to take better care of them.
I guess you're also a runner, a long distance runner.
Yeah, I needed something exciting, so I started doing Ironman competitions several years ago. So
Dick and I were talking about this prior to this program, and just the idea of like, you have to have a particular mindset to become special ops. You have to be really driven. And I found it fascinating that drive really extended beyond his service into like, you know, into his life now, where it's like, you know, yeah, I'm going to go out and do a try and be a triathlete. Like,
yeah. And please join us tomorrow night for our program on the withdrawal from Afghanistan. We're going to be talking with Afghanistan veterans, right, Sean?
That's
asking
right.
them what they think about it.
Yeah, and opening up to the room too. I think this is a military issue. This is also a civilian issue. I'm interested to hear what everyone's thoughts are. We've been talking about the fall of Saigon over the last week. I think there has correlation there, in the hopes that we don't see another fall of Saigon. But we also will have the author of The Hardest Place, Wesley Morgan, joining us tomorrow night as well. He spent a lot of time embedded as a war journalist in Afghanistan, and I think we'll have a particular perspective on his thoughts on the withdrawal as well. His book, The Hardest Place, is about his time in the Pesh Valley, embedded with some of the army there.
Yes, and he went to Afghanistan as a research project in college. For a research paper he was doing in college. He went to Afghanistan and was embedded. I'm fascinated to talk to him, and now he's at a very young age, a very great expert on the war in Afghanistan. So I'm looking forward to meeting him. All right. Thank you all for joining us. Hope to see you tomorrow night. Have a good rest of your day. Take care. Thank you, Dick. Thank